And I'll never forget one day just jumping up there and just standing on this bench and just started telling people about Jesus, just started sharing the gospel message. Because I believe that's the times that really define us as people. Is, are we going to wait until people come to us, or are we going to meet them right where they're at? And I just remember sharing the gospel and just people getting saved. And our friend was in a coma still. And just after a few more weeks of just these revival nights, he got out of the coma. And I remember just sitting there being in awe of God.
From pray.com, this is Life, Leadership, and Legacy. Every week, we give you the stories, values, and actions driving the world's most passionate leaders. On this podcast, we'll hear about the lives of pray.com's most devoted leaders. Listen to the experiences that have shaped their life, the mistakes they've made, and how they've learned to fulfill their destiny while leaving a legacy of helping others. On episode 3 of this 3-part series, Pastor Billy talks about his experiences with changing people's perspective. He doesn't want to just be a Christian, but also be a great follower of Jesus. He describes moments of focusing on what is in front of him, sharing the gospel message, being loved by God, and saving his friends.
You know, today I'm 28 years old, and people all the time tell me I have an old soul, and I don't know whether or not to be offended or whether that's a good thing, but I know what they mean. I know it's a good thing. But you know, over just the few short years that I've been here on earth, you know, reaching people has really resonated in my heart. Not just, you know, let's get them saved. I think that's a very broad calling, but I feel a strong urge to help people rediscover passion and express their passion in a way that sometimes people have never seen before. And I look at my life, I look at my story, I look at getting cancer, I look at you know, raves, look at doing drugs, look at my parents' divorce, I look at the ups and downs in my life, and the cause of giving people hope is really what resonates in my heart. Like, all I want to do is get people to realize what life is and how they can truly experience it. You know, there's been some times that I've been in church and I see our church doing things that moves my heart in such a way that I'm just in awe of what God is doing. You know, a couple years ago, we had a young person in our church. He was on our church leadership team. We found out that he had been dealing with severe depression, and I remember sitting, talking with him, counseling him through some things, and remember him walking away from our last meeting with a smile on his face. And never forget, it was 2 weeks later, we got a call that he had tried to take his life. And when you're a leader and you realize you had a moment to shift someone's perspective and you get a call like that, it really makes you think how important every moment is. You know, it's one of the hardest lessons I've probably learned is that experience with this guy is every moment someone's in front of me, they need to be the most important thing in my life, whether it's a 16-year-old girl telling me she's now pregnant, or a 35-year-old man telling me he just cheated on his wife, or a 40-year-old businessman that's about to make the biggest investment of his life. Sometimes we need to just focus on who's in front of us. And that's been a lesson I've had to learn. And so we got the call that he had tried to take his life. And my wife and I rushed to the hospital. We met with the family. And we got the news that he was going to be in a coma for quite some time. And about a week later, his brother called me. And he says, hey, man, a couple of us are going to go pray tonight over by the hospital. Would you be willing to, you know, round some people up and come? And I said, sure. And so I text out a few people from our team. On the way to the hospital, he calls me. He says, hey, man, there's about 100 people here. We're going to have to go outside. And when we got to the hospital, we saw 100 people outside of the hospital just praying, just singing, just asking the Lord to do something. And so we were there for a few hours. The next night we came back again. This time we brought a guitar and someone started singing, and we're outside this hospital, and just in this courtyard area is about 100 of us, and we're just singing to God. We're praying. We're just asking him to do something. And we came back the next night, and this time it was about 150 people there. At this point, people in the hospital started to recognize what was going on. We had people walk out of the hospital, ask us what we were doing. We had people in the hospital that were sick, Their family members came down, asked for prayer, and then they went back up and found them healed. We had doctors that would come and get prayer from us. About 2 weeks into this, we had almost 300 people in the parking lot of this hospital. And I'll never forget one day just jumping up there and just standing on this bench and just started telling people about Jesus, just started sharing the gospel message. Because I believe that's the times that really define us as people. Are we going to wait until people come to us, or are we going to meet them right where they're at? And I just remember sharing the gospel and just people getting saved. And our friend was in a coma still. And just after a few more weeks of just these revival nights, he got out of the coma. And I remember just sitting there being in awe of God. And I think when I look at my life and I look at, what I'm going to leave behind, I want to leave moments like that behind. When I think about leaving this earth and people still being here and thinking about what my life was about, I want people to know that I had a passion for Jesus that was beyond any kind of plan, a passion for Jesus that was beyond the four walls of a building, a passion for Jesus that was bigger than something I could put on social media. When I leave this earth, I want people to know, I was a follower of Jesus. I wasn't just a Christian. I think Christians know what Jesus did, but I think followers do what Jesus did. And that's what I want people to know about me. I have the privilege of being under a great leader. My pastor, Pastor Obed, he's more than my pastor. He's my spiritual father, and I've become a son to him. I have no desire to do my own thing. I have no desire to go and become something on my own. God's placed me with that man. And I look at his life and the legacy that he's going to leave behind, and it just makes me want to raise up sons and daughters, makes me want to father people so that one day I can leave a legacy for them. And I think about my wife, I think about our life, I think about getting caught up sometimes so much in what we do that we forget about who we are. And I think personally, that's what I want to leave behind. I want to leave a legacy of following Jesus. I think people in this life are so confused when it comes to church. We make following Jesus so difficult sometimes. But the reality is, I want to make the gospel simple for people. I want people to understand how loved they are, how valued they are. And if I leave this earth and let's say I leave this earth and all I can leave behind is 3 things. They can't read my books, they can't read hear my podcast, they can't listen to sermons. If someone says, who was Billy Heather? I want them first to know he was loved by God. I want people to know, he was loved by God. Not because of what he did, but because of what Jesus has done. I want people to know he is valued by God because of who he is in Christ, not because of what he can construct or build, not because of how clever or how brilliant people thought he was. Who cares about that stuff? I want people to go, he truly loved God. The second thing I would want them to know is that he had a passion for people. We today have to make people our priority. People make problems, but people are not problems. I think too often we look at people as seasons, or we look at them as projects, and we think, I just got to do this, meet with them, do that. No, people are not projects. They are a part of our lives. So I want people to know that he had a passion for people, that he loved people. And then thirdly, I want people to know that he took risks, that he stepped out of the boat, that he lived on the edge of safety, because we're not going to do something great in this world if we play it safe. I don't want my sons to look at me and say, oh man, he was a good person, or he did some great things. No, I want people to look at my life and say, man, he really tried some things that I thought were crazy. Man, he really came up with some things. His vision was beyond what we expected. I think to truly leave a great legacy, you have to do something you've never thought you could do before. If you always do what you've always done, you're only going to be where you've always been. And I think to truly be great, we have to be willing to do new things. And so I think now what I'm doing now, I think pastoring people, fathering people, it's always going to benefit my life. But in this next season of my life, these next 20 years, I want to start fathering people. I want to start fathering sons and daughters. I want to give my life to them so that they can go further than I could ever go. I love looking at the ministry of Jesus and his life. And there's one story in the Bible where the disciples come back and they've cast out demons. They've done amazing things, and they come back. They're like, Jesus. They're like, even the demons are subject to us. And Jesus says something so profound, and I think it defines us as Christians. He says, do not rejoice that serpents and scorpions are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. In other words, don't rejoice in what you can do for me. Rejoice in who you are because of me. That's what I want my life to be. I want my life to be about rejoicing in who I am in Him. And I think that's what will change our churches. That's what will change our leadership styles. That's what will change our world when we can keep Jesus as the focus. He's why we live, and He's who changes people's souls.
Hi, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode of pray.com's Life, Leadership, and Legacy. To stay updated on our latest episode, subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe, leave us a rating, and let us know your favorite episode in the reviews section of iTunes. For more, go to pray.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for another episode of pray.com's Life, Leadership, and Legacy.
Did you know you can get on our show by calling us at 323-521-9791? If this episode impacts your day, we want to know. Call 323-521-9791 and leave us a voicemail with your testimony so we can share it with our guests and listeners around the world. Call 323-521-9791 to leave a message about how this podcast has impacted your life.